Good morning, all. I'm Prasanna Akolkar, and I'm currently the Android Project Manager at DSC VIT. I welcome you all to this session, Integrating Payments with Web. So, just to start with what DSCs are, DSCs are university-based community programs mainly for students who are interested in open source or specifically Google developer technologies. Last year, we had conducted various sessions and workshops like the CloudFest, Explore ML workshops, and in which we trained around 500 to 600 students, and also the Flutter Bootcamp and GitHub and many other events too. So all these were physical, but now since we are going online, we are trying something new, and these sessions are really very fruitful. So I would love you all to ask questions in these sessions. And now I'll be introducing to you Mr. Hemanth HM. So he's currently working with PayPal as a member of technical staff from last 4 years.
Prasanna having some issues. Hemanth, he will be back in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Hello, am I audible? Hello,
Yeah.
Hemant.
Yeah, Prasanna, you're audible.
Okay, so I'll start. Hello all, I am Prasanna Akolkar. So I'm currently the Android project manager at DSC VIT. So I welcome you all to the session integrating payments with web. So yeah. So just to start with what DSCs are you can say community-based programs, university-based community programs for students who are interested in open source or specifically Google developer technologies. So last year we had conducted many sessions and workshops like CloudFest, Explore ML Fest, and in which we trained around 500 to 600 students. Also the Flutter Bootcamp, GitHub, and many more. So all these were physical sessions, but now we are conducting them online. So I hope to get a good response here too. And yeah, so I'll introduce you to our speaker, Mr. Hemanth HM. He's currently working with PayPal as a member of technical staff. He has previously worked with companies like Zoomcar, Cisco as a senior software engineer. And he, apart from this, he's also a Google developer expert for web and payments. He's a community member at DuckDuckGo, a Google LaunchPad accelerator mentor, and a member of Node.js Foundation. He also loves to write and has written articles on various technical topics as well as his personal interview experiences on his website. He has open sourced more than 300 projects. So hello, welcome, and thanks a lot for joining us today. I might have missed many things, so you can add them, please.
That's okay. Thank you, Prasanna, and Tanishka and all of your team for organizing this. And thank you everyone for joining online on a very cold, rainy morning, I presume.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I'll start with a question which was like it was asked by many from our group as well. So these days technologies are changing very rapidly. So a few years ago, PHP language was mostly used in web, but nowadays Node Express is preferred over it. So what do you think will be the future demand language in web?
That's a very interesting question, Prasanna. If you see, there is still demand for COBOL programmers, right?
Mhm.
So what do you think the future of programming is, and which language would be good? It's always a tough question, but one thing that we need to be very sure is to get our fundamentals right, so that we can apply that in no matter what language that pops up, right?
Right.
So if you go back to your question, you said like few years back PHP was the thing, and still there are few many sites and projects that are still running on PHP, and folks are running on Node, and few people who worked on Node for pretty long thought it could have, or it had more potential to grow, but it has not really, and they went to Go, and few tried Rust and few tried Go. So it all depends on what you're trying to solve, and not and yes, you have to be ready for the future, but not the future should be not based on a particular programming language, is what I feel personally. The idea should be to get your fundamentals right, so that you could apply it to whatever language is of the prime most importance, if we may say, for that particular point of time. And there's an interesting quote I read. I don't remember who said it, but it says that programmers are telegraphers of 21st century. So we all will be replaced by something better. But
Right.
but yeah, even if it's AI, there must be some folks or ML. There must be some folks are setting and making those models, and letting them make the decisions and things like that. So at your stage, I would definitely suggest to experiment a lot, try as many languages you can and as many stacks you can, and you will kind of get a feel that, hey, this language is appealing for me. This, I am able to express my thoughts easily in this language, and that's why it's called a language, right? And you might have a
Right.
grip in a particular language, and it's always good to explore that and try to gain your expertise there, but still try to keep your radar and vision broader, and try to experiment on various languages.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. So I'll ask the next question now. So many of you might be knowing that Hemanth is a community leader at DuckDuckGo. So Hemanth, what do you think are, like, you can say, interesting facts about DuckDuckGo, because it is not used very widely by students at least. So can you just tell us something about it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm kind of surprised that few of your folks aren't exploring it, and I feel it's a good opportunity to explore it. So
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo is a free and open source search engine, which doesn't really track you, and which kind of doesn't put you in a search bubble, and it takes care of your privacy and all of that. But what really interests and should interest students is you could go and contribute to the search engine. So one of the interesting things is it comes with a bang search kind of a feature. I'll try to share my screen quickly.
Yeah.
And so if you see, you can do a bang, and are you able to see my screen? I think.
Uh, guys, can you just tell me in the chat box? Like, I'm not able to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm able to see it.
Okay. So basically, when we do a bang, you get these options, right? And
Yeah.
and you could contribute to such bang commands if you want to, right? So for example, I do a bang Hemanth in this case. It would take to my personal site, and as community leaders, we get this privilege to map that. So you could I will pass you the links and how to get started, and we also have a dockerized container. You could play around with that, which is
Sure.
pretty interesting. So you could read the code and understand what's happening behind the search engine, which is a very good practice.
Yes, that's really very interesting, and we would love to get something from you regarding this. So,
Sure.
yeah. Okay, so the last question before we start the presentation is that can you just express your thoughts on cryptocurrency and the future of Bitcoin and Picoin?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I remember those days like when it was introduced, when the whole idea of bitcoins was introduced in Hacker News long ago. I tried creating an account, and it was kind of asking the SSN and things like that, and I was pretty skeptical, and I thought this wouldn't really scale, and I didn't really buy any bitcoins. But later on, I bought some Ethereums when they were around $9, and Ethereums went till $1,400, and I saw this journey. So if one doesn't really understand what's happening, it becomes more like a gamble. but if you're able to predict things and investing in the right direction, it is a good market. But not many people can understand those graphs and those, and it's still a prediction, right? Anything can happen based on market sentiment, let
Right.
alone the market, all of this money involved in it. But what is more interesting is the blockchain technology in itself, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so what would happen to these coins shouldn't be much of a concern for us until unless we are not really investing. And following it due to curiosity is really good. And we could try
Yeah.
to study the graphs and try to predict and understand and analyze them. But the interesting thing is to know what blockchains are and how it works. There are few specifically if you're looking into Ethereum, which I would suggest you to look into, and there are few online IDs and tools which you can try and develop your own blockchain, and you could also start looking into what mining does. So mm, just predicting the future of these coins wouldn't uh, be as meaningful or fruitful. So
Okay.
I would suggest to look more into one level deeper and look into what blockchain is basically, and try to
Okay.
program on that and analyze and understand that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, sir, you can start. So, Hemanth, you can start with the presentation.
Yeah.
And guys, I would love if you can ask some questions here. Hemant can answer it at the end of the session, and he'll be really very happy to do that for you.
Yeah. And Prasanna, if you want to interrupt me somewhere in between the talk with a question, you could feel free to do that too.
Sure, Hemant.
Awesome. Cool. So payments on web. So before we dive into payments on web, let's travel back in time. Where did all the idea of money evolve from? So long ago, people were using the barter system where, say, one guy grew bananas and the other guy had fish, and he had excess of bananas and he wanted more fish, so they exchanged bananas and fish, and that's where the idea of commerce came into picture. So any guess what these are? I'm I am on full screen, so I'll be not able to see your chat responses, and I hope a few people would be guessing that these are gold coins, right? These are gold coins specifically from the Vijayanagara dynasty, and they were one of the very first ones to use gold coins for as a format of exchanging as money, right? Then we also started having few other metal coins and gold, brass, silver, and likes. And of course, then we had paper money, and then we had checks, and I'm not sure if you guys have seen a thing called as demand drafts, and we started having
Yes.
those, right? And of course, we have the credit and debit cards and bitcoins and all these cryptocurrencies, and we have all the payments on our mobile devices and web. And we have got into a level where devices can talk to each other, and we have QR codes which we can scan and do the payment, or use our mobile devices and use our fingerprint or NFC to do the payment, or we can still use cards to swipe, touch, right, or insert. And today even you can buy stuff from your fridge, or your fridge is smart enough to figure out what it ran out of, and it could just order what it wants. And we might also have experienced VR technology to make payments and shopping and things like that. So where do you think the payments would kind of evolve into? Or if I were to ask this question, if you were to watch say Netflix per se, and you have a subscription on Netflix, when was the last time you made a payment? Did you even make the payment is the question, right? So the payment just happened in the background.
Yeah.
So where do you think the technology could evolve? Let us make a wild guess. It could be something as crazy as thought payments. You could just think of something, and then like there is an authentication or authorization happening, and that payment is being done. Or rather, you don't think of payments at all, like how it happened in Netflix. It just happened in the background. You just subscribed once and you just forgot about it, and it's just ongoing. So it can be that you don't even think of payments, and payments is just happening everywhere. You walk into a shop, you buy some goods and just walk out, and like all the payment is done. You book a cab. Well, we used to book a cab and get into a cab and get out, and the payment used to be done. And so the payment is becoming more and more invisible, and always in the background.
Yeah.
You might be wondering, so what? So the idea is, the more we understand how money kind of evolved and where it is going, we will be in a state to empathize with the customer and try to provide what they need at that particular period of time. And today, most of the payments are kind of done in mobile devices or on websites, and when we are trying to buy stuff, pay our bills, and manage our subscriptions, and transfer money to friends and family, and all of it is happening in a tap. So if I could randomly guess out of all the audience what we have in the past week, there would be at least one or two transaction that you folks would have done, may it be online or just sending money to your friends and family.
Yes.
So welcome to Jurassic Park. Well, I mean to say the payment world. So let's see behind the scenes as a flowchart what really happens when we try to do a payment on an online store, right? So as a customer, we come in and we place an order, and once the order is placed on the online store, like may it be in store or a website, what really happens is the digital order goes to something called as a payment gateway. And from the payment gateway, the payment gateway says, hey customer, like what is your payment method like? Are you using credit card, debit card, or you're using cryptocurrencies, or it might be any payment method? And the customer says, hey, say in this case I'm using my credit card. And okay, the gateway goes and then passes the detail to something called as acquiring bank. So the acquiring bank is basically the bank which belongs to the merchant, and then from the acquiring bank, the details is passed to an issuing bank. By issuing bank, I mean to say a bank which is has kind of issued the card. Say in this case you have Visa, and then it says, hey, this looks like a valid card, like whatever the merchant entered in terms of the CVV, expiry, name, and the card, everything looks valid. It says, hey, I'm approving this. And then from the acquirer bank, the message goes to the gateway, and gateway says, okay, everything looks good, and it sends the response to the online store, and the online store sends the message to customer saying, hey, your payment is successful, and probably there's like sending some goods, or for some service the payment is done. And after which the settlement part takes, that's in the number 10, right? So this entire thing will happen say on an average of 2 to 3 seconds, and if you see, there are so many hops in each of these areas, and at each of this area in itself, there are a lot of components and a lot of communication that's happening. And we will try to break down few parts of this, and we will also try to see as a merchant how I could integrate a payment request API within my site as an example, with some live code and all of that. Sounds interesting, I presume.
Yes, surely.
Yeah. So payment gateway is the most interesting aspect if you see in this flow, right? So it kind of acts as an interface between the merchant and the banks, and it tries to make all the process smoother. Also, there are a few companies which act as a payment gateway, provide other mechanisms of say in detecting fraud, analyzing risk, and giving the transaction details, giving you an ability to search, tag, giving you an ability to refund at times as a merchant, or cancel or void a transaction and archive your transaction, and all the auditing that has to go and the reporting that needs to be done for all of your transaction. Normally, companies which provide them take care of it. May it be like PayPal, or in your context, it might be PayU, Paytm, and likes. Right. But the important thing that all of these guys need to handle or need to be aware of is a few things, like what is listed here. One being the secure socket layer, which is pretty much evident in all of the sites today. Even our personal sites today are on SSL, HTTPS. And the most important thing here is called as PCI DSS. That's Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, which are like list of standards that a company should adhere to be a PCI compliant, so they can process the payment. Right? All these payment processors should adhere, but there are different levels in PCI, and if you are just doing on one, like you're still need not comply for everything that's there on the stack for compliance. And tokenization is one of the other important factors. As you can see in the flow, and as you already do many transactions online, you would be aware that you would normally enter your card details, and some of the websites store your card details, right? And most of them aren't very, weren't very, or maybe few of them are still not to store their cards on a site. And to be very frank, this part of tokenization is where it brings a lot of security. So all of the payment processors and payment gateways, basically when they get this card information, there is something called as tokenization that happens. So what happens in tokenization is, you can think of it like a vault. So in the vault, this your card, say all your details is kind of encrypted, and a token is formed, which means nothing. Just by the token, you can't really make sense of what it is. So it's in a vault, and then it's tokenized. So there is a particular token which can be deciphered by only the ones who are valid to get your card information. And during all the phases where we saw, just a token would be passed, and if there is a man in the middle attack or someone is trying to spoof, they can't really make sense of what the token is. And the token can also have an expiry and all of it involved in it. So the cards are normally or have to be tokenized to be secure, and if it's stored. And then the other important thing is 3DS, which you might have heard and have seen on the cards, which kind of says that if you have a card, you should also have a password created for it, and using that along just the card number wouldn't help, but you have to also use that as a second factor authentication. And some of them also with the password would also ask you for an OTP and things like that. And the fraud scrubbing is the entire thing what I was mentioning previously in analyzing and looking whether from where the request was made from a particular IP, looking into the geolocation and all of the other factors which are considered. And there is a list of fraudulent behaving IPs and all of that. So all of these checks and bounds have been done by something called as fraud scrubbing, and these days machine learning is helping a lot in fraud scrubbing. Right. So these are some of the key areas that they should be vigilant. And some of the jargons we normally use, and it's helpful to keep these in mind, is payee is basically the merchant, payer is the one who is paying, and payment method could be like your credit card or cryptocurrencies and debit card and all of that, and payment method providers are basically the organizers which is providing that, may it be like Visa, MasterCard, or and likes, and payment handler is basically the implementation of that code that kind of handles that payment request and passes on to where it needs to be. So on a normal flow, say on the web UI, you go to say any e-commerce website, say Amazon or Flipkart in your case, and you go and add stuff to your shopping cart, right? And normally this happens. You add a lot of stuff to your shopping cart, and you decide probably I would resume my shopping later, or you lose interest at sometimes, or you still go ahead from the shopping cart to the next level, and now presume that you're not saved your card and you need to go and enter the details, or you might have a card which is saved is already expired and you need to add a new card to it and things like this. So there are two touch points where a consumer can abandon the process. So whatever is happening in between the web UI and the shopping cart is shopping cart abandoned, and whatever is happening in checkout and during the payment for any reason is checkout abandoned. So there are these two areas that most of the merchants would be looking closely into and trying to fine tune so that there are no losses happening there. So to solve this, and when a lot of analysis is being done, and Baymard is the company that normally does most of the statistics on such use cases, and according to them, 69.23% of shopping carts are just abandoned, right? And they kind of went and listed out the reasons why this happens, and like 55% of that is extra cost or too high shipping tax or fees and things like that. And the second important thing is the site wanted me to create an account, right? When the site says, hey, create an account, these days there are alternatives which says, okay, you can sign in with some social, maybe sign in with Google or sign in with FB and things like that, where they're trying to minimize the friction of creating an account, and so on. There are a few many reasons why this is happening. Maybe like the website crashed, or the checkout process is very complicated, or the return policy was not satisfying, or there wasn't enough payment methods, or the credit card was declined. So these are some of the main reasons why people were abandoning the cart or the checkout. So W3C kind of introduced this interesting API called as Payment Request API, which evolved over the years, and the main intention was to kind of also solve this issue of folks abandoning either checkout or the payment in itself, right? So you can think of Payment Request API as the API that the merchant integrates on their site to reduce the friction during the payment process. And Payment Handler API is more like the payment application in itself, which is handling the payment after the payment request is done and submitted. So you can think of it like that, right? So the merchant in the browser, the API is a Payment Request API, and the browser in the web payment app is Payment Handler API. So Payment Request API in the browser looks as below, and these are the browsers that support it in various levels, and some of them have complete implementations like Chrome, and some of it is in Firefox, Edge, Safari, and Samsung browser. So that's how the screens of the Payment Request API would look like. And the other one that I was mentioning was the Payment Handler API, which is basically service workers in itself. So service workers in itself can be a talk, and if I could quickly try to explain what service worker is, you could think of it more like a proxy that is sitting between your browser and the network, but it's bundled within the browser, and the user or the programmer gets the control over the network rather than the network controlling the site, right? So you could quickly think of it like that. And the payment handler, for each of the payment instrument, the service worker can register to it, which has the payment handler API, and there's the payment messenger, which kind of takes care of the payment process. I know it felt like too much of complicated jargons and theory, and so let's get into some code. Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly show this thing called as smart buttons in PayPal. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it. I think I can see the chat now. Cool. Okay, there are some questions, Prasanna. If you want to stop me, you could.
Sure. Actually, I had one question regarding friction. So, as you said that, am I audible, sir? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you said that that payment companies are trying to reduce the friction so as to get more customers, right? So, like for example, Netflix, they directly deduct it from your account after the month. So, can you just tell me like from where did this idea come from? Like, it looks like a unique idea. Like, how will people trust on the website or something? So, can you just tell me something about that?
Yeah. So it's not the payment companies which are directly focusing on that. It's more like the merchant are not willing to lose the customer, right?
Right.
Now, this subscription plan has been there for a very long time, even in offline mode and online mode. If you were to look back into those eras where people used to subscribe for magazines and newspapers, right? Or say some of them used to subscribe for even the milk vendor, right?
Yeah.
So basically the subscription is not a new idea per se, but subscription on online was something new that started with all these technological companies that started popping up where they needed subscription. And PayPal also provides billing and subscription privileges where you could go and hook up different subscription which goes through PayPal, so you have control on canceling and monitoring all of your subscriptions under one hood.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, sir. I'll ask all the other questions like we have marked it at the end of the session.
Yeah, sure.
Is it fine, sir?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm kind of used to the interaction based talks, but this is fine. We'll do it this way. We'll focus on this. I'll do the rest of the talk and we'll get back. Not an issue.
Sure.
And so I was talking about PayPal smart buttons, right? So with PayPal smart buttons, you could just add the PayPal SDK and you'll get a client ID. You just put in your client ID and you could also like go through all of the different buttons that it provides and for what you're eligible, and you can create your order and things like that. So it's as simple as just hooking onto the script and invoking where do you want to render these buttons. So in this case, we have like 3 buttons. You click on PayPal, it comes up with a pop-up. You can log in and enter your details, and once you have your merchant account created, it knows from where to where the money should flow, and you will log in, so it knows your shipping address, your billing address, so you're saving time on all of that. Or else, like, you could just click on debit card and it would pop up your debit card information where you could select your country, and it kind of supports Discover, MasterCard, Visa, Amex, and all of that, and you enter your details and you could still go and check out. And also PayPal has its own credit card feature and it gives that, as simple as that. But what we are also interested in focusing today specifically is the payment request API that I was mentioning, which is a W3C standard and people from Samsung, Google, and all of them are involved in this spec. So let's see how this works, right? Is the font clear, or should I bump it up?
You can just zoom it up a little, maybe.
Yeah, is it fine now?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, sure. So how do we check whether the browser has the payment request support or not? Is as simple as this. You could check the property for payment request on window. If it's present, then it is supported. If it's not, then it's not supported. Then once it is supported, the three important thing that the payment request API needs is supported methods, payment details, and options, right? And in supported methods, we say supported method is basic card, and data, the supported networks is Visa, MasterCard, and JCB as an example here. And we will also see what are the other supported methods could be. It could be say Bob Pay or any other payment URL, Google Pay or PayPal and things like that. So now we are kind of clear. So we checked if payment request is there in the browser, and then we looked into the supported method, and then what we need is the payment detail. So in payment detail, we say, hey, here's your total, and this is the amount that you need to pay, right? And then there will be shipping options that we will get into. So then we have options is like optional, mandatory. So assume that it's an empty object for now. So what we have is supported method and payment details that needs to be there, right? Now what happens with this? So in this case, I'm just like rendering out a Van Gogh's painting, and you can buy it, and you click on pay. When I click on pay, I just have order summary and payment method, right? On payment method, I can go edit, add my payment, and all of that. And then I could go and do a pay. It would ask me for the CVV. I provide the CVV, and it goes and locks the details. So it said, hey, okay, the card number, all of this, and now you can use the card number to buy whatever you want. So these are dummy cards, so not to. And
Okay.
the method name is like basic card. It creates a request ID, payer email, and all of this is null. Now let's go ahead. Let's go to supported methods, and we will add Bob Pay. So Bob Pay is just another payment handler which was just done for the demo sake. And let's quickly refresh this. This should automatically refresh. Somehow it's not happening. So when I click on this, last time we saw Visa, right? Now we have Bob Pay. Now you go here and you have both Visa and Bob Pay. And Bob Pay was a bit cranky today, but let's see, hope it works. Yeah, it worked. So it says now we are seeing Bob Pay instead of Visa, right? You could select that, and it does the processing, and we see the method name is Bob Pay. And it said it gave the token ABCD and thank you for using Bob Pay, right? So that payment handler handled the payment. Now we saw that with supporting method, with just basic card, we got the basic card functionality, and also that basic card still remains. So because we have provided multiple there, we could select Visa if you want, or Bob Pay. So if you have multiple, all of them will show up here. So now we are kind of clear with supported methods. Then we have payment details, where we provided the $10, right? That's where we saw the $10. So this is the $10 part, right? And now it gets interesting. We can add shipping options to it. By shipping options, I mean it could be like, hey, if this is like an expensive shipping, then or if you want a rapid shipping, you want an instant shipping, you could give some more extra fee to it, and we will take care of that. Or you could just opt in for free shipping, and you could select whichever you want by default. So we are saying in this case, select the free shipping option, right? So previously we just saw total and amount was there. Now it should show up the shipping. but it didn't show. That is because in options we don't have a request shipping as true. So let's go and say request shipping as true in options. Now we are kind of unwrapping each of the parameters, right? So supported methods, we added two different supported methods, basic card and Bob Pay. For payment details, we just had the total. Now we have shipping options. For options, we need a request shipping to be true so that it shows up the shipping. Yeah, now we are seeing the shipping, right? So you could see, you could add extra, you could add a shipping address if you want. It takes all of this and it has saved many of my address, and I could go and just click on Pop Pay in this case and go ahead and do the payment. Interesting so far?
Yes.
So then we could also request for name, phone number, and email, right? So from a basic payment where we just had the amount on the card, now we have landed into something more detailed, right? Like we have the shipping address, we have the shipping method, we have the payment, and we have the contact info. So it picks up all of that and it again goes and does the payment. It responds back with everything, and it also said the shipping option is free, right? So if you see, there's one thing that's missing. What is that? What happens when there is a change of address, or what happens when there is a change of option, right? When they're saying, hey, I need to probably change my address. Can I handle that, or why should I even handle that? So the reason is, whenever there's a change of address, the merchant might decide that, hey, I'm not willing to deliver to this address, right? Or they might be out of stock for that particular address, right? So what happened here? So what happens here is, whenever you go and click on the address and you select a different address, right? It kind of goes and calls that event handler. That's where I'm logging this payment request event. So here it says shipping address change, and then you could go through this event and pick up the target and say what was their shipping option and what was their shipping address that they selected, what is the postal code and all of it. And then you could decide whether you want to ship to this or not, and you could remove the shipping options from the payment details, and it would show an error saying that, hey, we can't really ship to this particular address. And wherever I'm doing the payment response to JSON is where we are seeing in the console with all the details, right? So if you do a payment response dot complete, what really happens is that window goes off. So thereby it kind of indicates that, hey, the payment is complete. And this is like the quick introduction of payment request API, and you can find this on this URL, and I'll be passing it on to you guys. Probably you could get it from Prasanna after the talk.
Sure.
So let's head back to the rest of the presentation. So hope you enjoyed the show on that code. And the other interesting API is the web authentication. So we need to authenticate the user before taking the payment. So one of the APIs is the web OTP. With web OTP, this is what we can do. So basically, in this example, you enter your phone number, and the SMS has been sent to that phone number. The SMS is received, and it says, hey, Chrome wants to access the SMS. Should I allow it? And you'd say, yeah, go ahead and allow it. That's okay. It can access my SMS. And after you allow it, it picks up on autofills, and you could use this for any purpose. Maybe from the. So one of my friends works in Swiggy. The last time I saw, I remember that they just have phone number as their login, if I'm not wrong, right? And few many apps, few many sites, and maybe progressive web apps also, native apps also, these days are relying more on having just your phone number as your identity, right? So in this example, you could use web OTP to send to read the OTP, pre-populate as we saw in this example, and say, hey, yeah, this is the guy who I want to authorize. And this is the sample, the entire set of code that can do this. In this case, you see OTP credentials in window is to check what we do in the very first line, and then we say navigator.credentials.get OTP transport is SMS, and then we say OTP code. That OTP code is the code that was sent, and now we just put that to the input value and hit the form submit, and thereby the submit happens. So it behaves more like how the native OTP was behaving, but today web is capable of doing it, and it is through the navigator credentials API, right? And the other interesting aspect is on web authn, which is kind of a more detailed approach where you could use your fingerprint on the device to authorize and authenticate the user and say, hey, you could use your fingerprint to do your payment, or you could use your fingerprint to even log into our site. Thereby, all the friction points which were on web or generally in the flow of payments, maybe on the cart or in the payment or the checkout process, is kind of vanishing, and web is becoming more and more capable of handling more complex scenarios. And also we have APIs for NFCs. You could read NFC tags, you could write to NFC tags from your web, and all of it. Of course, the WebRTC is, I hope you guys are already aware of the WebRTC functionality, where you could access your camera and mic, and also share your screen, all of it with WebRTC. And also in the latest spec of WebRTC, we also have the text to voice and voice to text conversion proposal too. Yeah, and thanks. You can hit me on at GNUmonth on Twitter, or you could just go to h3month.com to get few links to my sites and force contributions. Hope you enjoyed, and I will take the questions now mostly.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It was really very interesting to go about it, and the code was really very interesting to look at. So, yeah. And we will go for questions now. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, Aniket Ghorpade asks, could you please enlighten us about how VR and AR can transform payments?
Definitely. That's a good question. Who asked the question again?
Aniket.
Aniket, yeah. So basically, there are a lot of experiments that's going on, and we have an innovation lab in PayPal where we also try to do a simple experiment where you could wear your VR headgear and walk through a virtual store and pick up whatever goods you want to, and do the transaction and check out with your just your virtual gear, right? So where it is heading is because of this the COVID era, we are seeing a lot of transformation in the payment industry and technology in general. So there are few tools on few websites that are popping up specifically where you could get an whole shop-like experience with your VR headsets, and augmented reality at parts, like there was one interesting idea of where if say you're watching a movie, and there are a lot many commodities that is being shown in the movie, and now you could purchase it from your TV, saying that, hey, I need to buy all of these, like maybe the watch that the person in the movie is wearing, which you're interested, and something like ML could go and recognize all of the entities, and it could show, hey, these are the things you could buy, and we need not even get into complex things as ML. It could just be like a metadata which is saying, in this particular scene, these are the things that are available, and you can buy it or use, and coupon code and just go and buy it. So it's kind of limitless, and it's opening up new gates. And I hope you guys will also explore and try to experiment with it.
Sure. I hope that has answered your question, Aniket. So we'll move on to the next question. Yeah. Sanket Shinde asks, could you please elaborate a bit more on fraud scrubbing?
Yeah, sure. Basically, frauds can happen due to many reasons, right? Like, say some of them are say like in the fundamental, going to like bare minimals where someone is calling you and asking you for your card details, or people are creating phishing sites and trying to now pick up your card numbers, or um, things like that. Very simple example I could give about scrubbing is quite simply. You could see when you're trying to do a transaction, when it asks you for the CVV number, or when you're trying to hit that number, when you're trying to do a say suppose you have just able to capture the card details, but now you don't have the CVV, and you try to do different combinations, and it kind of creates a red alert saying that, hey, your card got declined, but it got declined from a particular IP or a particular location. And there might be a pattern that is happening, that in a particular region someone is trying to do some kind of a fraudulent behavior. And there are few machine learning models which can figure out what's really happening. And there are few cases where people tend to create multiple merchant accounts, and try to create different sites where they just take the payment and don't really probably like provide the goods and all of that. So there are it's a very vast scenario of different fraudulent behavior that happens. With fraud scrubbing, it basically takes care of those scenarios, checks and bounds. It's basically few of the ML is kind of which builds upon the data it gains on the pattern it has found, and then validates. And sometimes it can still fail, and sometimes it can also at times block a valid user too. So it is kind of evolving at few places, and for most of it is pretty mature.
Okay, sir. So Sanket, I guess we have answered your question. So we'll move on to the next one. Amir Thakur says that, don't you think this idea of reducing friction is a kind of gamble for the users?
Yeah, well, it's debatable that way. Anything has pros and cons, and all of them are trying to optimize things, right? You could say say for example, like all this notification that pops up in your social media. Why aren't they combining all the notifications to one single notification? Why are they saying that person A liked your post, and then person B liked your post? Why not they say at the end of the day that all these guys liked your post, right? So it's kind of, yeah, it's more of an ethical concern too. But the shoppers shouldn't get into the mode of instant gratification, or like they just want to click and buy, and not really think for a second whether they really need this commodity or not. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And reducing the friction, is it really a gamble? Well, it depends on the user. That's a relative question. And technology always moves towards making things simpler. Whether it's good or bad is philosophical.
Right. Okay. So next question. Raj Shah. He says that while implementing payment in an e-commerce site, whether to go with login to pay or payment without login, which is important. Hello.
Yeah. Always like so, as you see, as you saw, the friction points were the second most highest was creating an account, right? So it's always good to try to have kind of a guest checkout kind of a privilege. but most of the merchants don't want to lose their guests too, right? So they
Yeah.
just try to take a minimal information, like saying that, hey, provide us with your email, or provide us with your phone number, so at least we could keep you updated with where your goods are, or how is your payment being proceeded. And then they could also normally trying to give a small checkbox saying, hey, it's okay, if you can send me newsletters and updates. So thereby you're not losing the customer, as well as not really spamming them too, or not creating an overhead in creating an account and then going to checkout.
Okay. So next question. Okay, Yash Halgaonkar is asking, how can we
Yeah.
implement UPI payments?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I thought of adding that into the slide, and skipped it on purpose because it could be a detailed thing in itself. So UPI can also be integrated as a gateway. So if you're, say for example, if you're using Google Pay, you could just get an option to also enable UPI. Or if you were to totally do it independently, you could still go and do the NPCI integration. You could go to your bank, and or a bank of choice, and then fill in a form to say that, yeah, you want to do an UPI integration, and directly integrated with the bank. So UPI kind of integrates with IMPS, RuPay, NFS, and there's basically a central repository. So you could go ahead and have your endpoints and integrate it directly to your site, which is pretty straightforward. It's not really a complex process, but diving into the architecture in itself could be a good discussion.
Okay. So next question. Um, okay, are we having more questions? Okay, sir. So till that time, I'll ask you another question. Amir Thakur is asking, what will be the steps if I want to implement payments in Android?
Yeah, if you were to implement payments in Android, there are different steps. Again, you could use the native payment, or if you were to integrate something like UPI, you should still go through the similar flow, or you could use things like Google Pay, or which gives you the native support, which might sound relatively less of an overhead compared to web. But as we saw with the APIs, it is on web, it is as simpler and as similar to how we could do it on Android.
Okay. Okay. So next question. Yeah. Tanay Vartak is asking how the unsuccessful payments are handled behind the scenes.
Yeah, good question. So for the payment request, I think I'll try to share my screen quickly.
Sure.
How are we doing on time? We are okay.
Yeah, it's fine. We can go around 4 to 5 minutes more.
Okay, sure. So where is it? Okay, in this particular case, when we get the payment response, right, here I'm just calling complete to demonstrate that the payment is completed. So what basically happens is, after you get this payment response, we normally send this data to the server, and the server, or basically the payment handler API, where I was talking about the integration, right? So what basically happens is, when it goes to the server, it goes and validates it knows that, okay, the card is already validated, the amount is here, and it goes and places the order, and then comes back and says, hey, with a in say to keep it very simple, it just a callback which resolves and says, hey, it's complete. If that callback resolves, you'll call a complete, or else you'll say, hey, it's not complete, it's cancelled. So in terms of this API, that's how it works. In terms of what the server does in the background is it can do multiple things. It can look into your payment instrument, say PayPal as a use case. It can look if there is a bank account linked to your account, it could try to do the transaction from there. Or if you have on your preference, even though if you have card, you could say my preferred instrument is bank, or you could say my preferred instrument is card. If your card is expired or it's not valid, then it can go to a secondary source where it could fetch the information from. So there are few many things that would happen in the background, and all of this happens within like 2 to 3 seconds, as I said. That's how it's handled.
Okay. So maybe
So,
last
I need to add,
Yeah.
but I need to add one
Yeah.
important point here.
Sure.
So in terms of unsuccessful payment, we can give retry options, and we could also we normally don't tend to reveal the reason why the unsuccessful payment happened, right? In the payment request API context, we would not say, hey, the payment is unsuccessful because your CVV is wrong. So we are not. It's not a good idea to give clues like that on there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, Anjali Devri says, will blockchain be taking over centralized payment methods in future as it is more secure?
More secure is a relative term, but yeah, definitely the security with blockchain is there, and will it take over centralized payment is a billion Bitcoin question. So
Okay.
so there is a lot of experiments that's happening. Like Braintree is one of the teams in PayPal which had cryptocurrency, right? And Stripe also is one of the payment companies which has cryptocurrency. So from what I am seeing as a pattern is it's more like experimental in the mainstream payment industry, because they normally don't tend to change quickly, because this is kind of has a lot of legacy to it in terms of security, and the risk factor is very high when you're playing with volatile technology. So will it really become a centralized thing is doubtful, but there is a lot of hope it can go and sync, because if it were to be centralized, what would happen to the banks, or where would it go, and what is the future with all the existing payment history that we have created, the legacy that gets formed. So it wouldn't like instantly replace, but there's a lot of potential, and people will try to leverage it rather than getting replaced by it.
Okay. And one last question for today. Yeah. Himanshu Bulani asks, how multiple currencies can be handled by payment gateway for customers using different currencies across the world?
Yes, good question, Himanshu. So this is called as normal terms as cross-border transaction in PayPal. So what really happens is the transaction is happening across borders. So each of the different payment gateways have different strategies to handle it. Some of them try to pick up the live market transaction values for currency conversion, and then apply that currency conversion. But most of them also add a fee to that, not only the currency conversion, but also a transaction fee, because it's going through cross borders. And when it goes through cross borders, there are options saying that, hey, for example, I need to pay I have an account in INR, but I need to pay to someone in Great Britain pounds. Now the site would say like, hey, if you're paying this much, this is what the other guy is going to receive, and he only has GBP, and this is the conversion factor that will be applied, so you need to pay some more extra, and for that also there's an extra fee that's being formed. And it also depends on which geolocation they are in. So each of the geolocations have their own rules and regulations. and some of them can allow to create a bucket. By bucket, I mean to say, I send an in INR to the merchant, and the merchant doesn't really have an INR account with them. We could still go ahead and create an INR virtual bucket and transfer the money as is. So it stays as INR for that merchant, even though they have GBP as their default source. So there are variations based on geolocations, and also there are a few geolocations which bring in the rule of having localized data. Like even India is pushing for that, saying that, hey, if you are processing all of this, all of the data should be within our borders and it should not go out of the border. So there is many things involved when you are doing cross border transactions, and not everybody are capable of doing that.
Okay. Okay. So thanks a lot, sir, for joining us. Like all the way from California, you just took out your valuable time and helped us to get a lot of insights into this. So really, thank you to you.
No problem, and thank you for you guys for organizing and asking like really wonderful questions and being pretty attentive and interactive. And I hope that we could continue this journey with payments, may it be in some groups or on Twitter or wherever you want to reach me.
Sure, it would be really good if we can connect again also. And also the audience was really great. Like really very good questions were asked by the audience, and it was a really very interactive session from their side also. And also, yeah, and like this was the first time where we got so many questions today. So it was really very interesting from your side, sir.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, for the audience, I'll just tell you something that we are going to put out a form in the comment section. You just have to fill that feedback form so as to get the certificates. Okay, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also, you can visit Hemanth sir's blog. He'll be sending me the website, and we can surely I can send it, I can share it with you all in the comment section as well. Is it fine, Hemanth?
Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, and yeah, bye, bye, sir.
Yeah. Bye.